Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Infield Report. My name is Isaac alongside my older brother Tyler.
Hello.
This weekend was Watkins Glen, and we actually had all four series that were there. We had the ARCA series, the Trucks, O'Reilly, and Cup series. It was a great weekend of racing, I think, all around. Despite weather threatening early in the week, it seemed like everything kind of held off. And I know it did affect qualifying for the Truck series a little bit. We'll dive into that in a bit. But the weather stayed away for the most part. It looked to be fairly nice, although it was a bit chilly according to some individuals. I saw them bundled up, and I'm like, that's not the way that the Glen should be. But sometimes those things happen, especially in May. But it was a great, like I said, great weekend of racing at the Glen. It seems like it never disappoints. Tyler, what did you think about the Glen being in May versus the typical August, September timeframe we typically see it?
I'm indifferent about it. Normally, I've been around just long enough to have it pretty much in end of July, August. So it's a summer race to me, but the weather wasn't too bad. I know in the past that it's had bad rainy moments, either shortened or just cloudy, gloomy. But this weekend overall was decent. I'm indifferent, but at the end of the day it's a summer race to me.
I agree. I mean, it's one of those races where it typically sits on one end of the schedule, but I know they did a lot of, well, somebody claimed to have done research and said that it was basically the same temperature, if not a little bit better than it is, and less chance of rain. I don't I don't know whether that's true or not, but it was good to see that the weather stayed away enough to not affect it. But I did find it funny that before they ran a single lap in any of the series at Watkins Glen this weekend, they posted that it's going to be back in the chase in September. I believe it's middle of September next year. So I don't know if it was due to some fan outrage, especially in the campgrounds, because it was muddy. People were getting stuck with the rain early in the week, and then all of the last of the I'll call it winter permafrost melting just didn't create the best of situations in the campground areas. But hopefully, with them pushing it back to September, back in the chase, hopefully that will give it a better chance weather wise. I mean, obviously, every weekend could be a coin flip as far as weather goes, but regardless, I think it'll be better, I think, later in the year. Just mentally for me at least, it's one of those where it's towards the end of the year, not before the All-Star break. So it was a little weird, but regardless, it was a really great weekend for racing. There was a lot of action in all the series. The truck series was actually very interesting. You had a lot of cup guys dropping down to that race. You also had a couple guys that were doing triple duty. Connor Zilich and Shane Van Gisbergen in particular were doing triple duty. And that was the battle I think everybody sort of expected at the front of the truck series. And Van Gisbergen didn't lead anything, didn't lead any laps. He was up towards the front, just couldn't necessarily get there as soon as he wanted to and he finished third. Uh, Connor Zilich did get the stage two win, but and led a bunch of laps. He led 28 of the 74. It looks like that was most out of anybody. But the surprise winner, who is not necessarily known as a road course guy, Caden Honeycutt, ended up coming home with the win, and it was very surprising to see. And uh, so it was good to see him finally get a win. He's been ahead in the points for so much of the season, and um, so now this I think is going to solidify his lead a little bit more. What did you think about the on track product for the truck series this weekend?
It was decent. It could be a little bit better. I think it was the best racing of the weekend, minus a couple of laps of the O'Reilly series, but we'll get to that in a minute. But overall, it was one of the better road courses out there, especially recent years at Watkins Glen in particular.
Oh yeah, it was very entertaining. There were a couple guys that ended up having some bad luck early. There was, Cole Butcher had some damage early. Um, Grant Enfinger had some transmission issues. Natalie Decker, she's listed as literally her reason for not finishing the race was too slow. So that was disappointing to see, and we can dive into it now since we're talking about that. Um, the qualifying for the truck series was very interesting, and I learned something new off camera about the qualifying for the truck series. The top top 31 trucks based on speed are locked in no matter what. If there's more than 36 entries into the race weekend, the top 31 on speed alone are locked in. The remaining 5 are not necessarily on time, they are on owner points. So we had a situation where we had 38 trucks this past weekend try to qualify, but only 36 were going to get the get the start. And so I was looking at the qualifying times for certain drivers, and unfortunately, we had 2 that, like I said, did not qualify. That would have been Destiny Spurlock trying to make her Truck Series debut, and Tony Breidinger, who you can say whatever you want about her. She's trying to get back on her feet and trying to get some more reps in the Truck Series now that she's not at Tricon anymore. She was trying to qualify her way into the race, and I disagree with the way that the Truck Series does it, and I can understand though, just because they want to make sure that you get the the bigger teams just in case they have an off week, like they're locked in on points, which is I guess okay. But looking at the qualifying times, Tony Breidinger was if we're going based on pure lap time and speed here, she would have been I think 33rd, which would have been right behind Wesley Slimp in the 62 and right ahead of Ross Chastain. If That's if we were going based purely on lap time, and then Destiny Spurlock, she would have been, uh, 30 if we would have counted Tony's time and counting Destiny's time, she would have been what did I say that was 35th? So, she would have made it in, but unfortunately, due to the owner points, you had Stephen Malazzi and Natalie Decker both making their way in from Team Raum, and that's where I kind of disagree. Um, no offense to Team Raum Brothers, and Josh Raum, but I think time and speed should matter, and it shouldn't matter that you're outside of the top 31. As long as you're in the top 36 regardless, I think you should you deserve to race in the race, not just, "Oh, well, you didn't make it on 31," and then, you know, this, that, and the other. How do you feel about the situation with Tony and Destiny?
I understand what NASCAR is trying to do. There's no reason given when they made this change. I think what was it, 2020, and a little tightened up a little bit more in 21. It was pretty much to get rid of the starting parks and to encourage people to start every race, or at least attempt to start every race, to be know, some long-standing teams to go at it year in year out and to at least try. instead of, like I said, the start and parks that was very rampant in the 2000s and 2010s. But going back to they should almost have a pre-qualifying like what they had in Formula One for a long time. Have the slowest ones compete for the remaining five spots, and whoever's too slow goes home. And then they get to compete with everyone else for the 36 spots. That's the only way I can really see it. Otherwise, regardless if you have owner points or not, or more or less, it speed and time should matter, not points.
Yeah, and it really sucked because again, like you had both of those, between Destiny and Tony trying to make their way in, and it would have been really cool to see Destiny run. Now, again, I know the speed that that truck had probably not going to do incredible, but it would get her some seat time and get her a chance to run against this level of competition and things like that. But the other thing too is the weather kind of modified the qualifying schedule to a single session. So even in those situations, I mean, you could still justify like just having them qualify on speed. There doesn't need to be this whole like we don't need to um do the second session to compete for the last 5 spots or whatever. In those circumstances, I think you should be allowed to just have everybody based on speed. But again, that's just my opinion. Like I said, no offense to Natalie or Steven. I know they're both talented in their own right, no matter how you want to, or no matter how you feel about them. But unfortunately, they got in and they were Natalie not finishing great. She only ran 20 laps. Uh, Steven actually ended up finishing 22nd, so I got to give him props where and credit where credit is due. But just kind of a disappointing situation for Destiny and Tony. But if we move away from that, um, we had some great results all around. We had, I think it was 4 Rams in the top 15. AJ Allmendinger was the highest finisher because he's the road course. He is a road course ringer. Uh, Great to see him back towards the top in the truck series, even though it's the 25 truck. It's that all-star truck. We've got some drivers rotating in and out. I think Clint Boyer is actually running that race or running that truck in the Dover race coming up this upcoming week. But we also had Minnie Tyrell getting a great finish for him in eighth, and Brendan Queen Butterbean right behind him in ninth, and Corey LaJoy in 12th. The only Ram that was kind of outside of all that was Justin Haley, who's not necessarily known as a road course guy, finishing 23rd. But regardless, 4 of their 5 Rams in the top 15. Great effort for them. Uh, just a fantastic finish. You know, it was good to see some of these guys bouncing back and getting positive momentum on their side once again. Daniel Hemrick getting a stage win for the year. It was really good to see for that number 19 team. They definitely need a little bit more momentum going into these next couple weeks, but overall, great Truck Series race. Ross Chastain was doing pretty well for Nice, but unfortunately had a later race accident and could not finish the race. But he was still very competitive when he was running. So good to see some of these guys kind of drop down. But again, Caden Honeycutt, got to give him credit, competing against a lot of the Cup or former Cup guys and road course guys, and still coming out on top was really awesome to see. And getting his first career win, but also he won in a couple different series over the course of the weekend, so he was still very, very happy that he was able to get a win and just completely keep that momentum going on his side. And with that win, he ended up not necessarily increasing his lead, but he sits pretty solidly in first right now over Chandler Smith. Lane Riggs unfortunately didn't have the best of weekends, but still with a decent place, 21st place finish. He sits in third in the points. Giro Ruggiero sits in fourth in the points, and Christian Eckes, who I don't know where the heck he kinda came from. I think just that consistency is starting to show up week in and week out now. He sits in 5th in the points for the Truck Series. So, it's gonna get interesting here in a couple weeks once we have a couple more races. We've got 8 races down for the Truck Series, and, we're almost to that halfway point for them, so it's gonna start heating up, I think, a little bit more as we go, but still a pretty good weekend for them, and, just kinda keeping things rolling. The O'Reilly series is where things also uh, there was a lot of action going on in that race. Like I said, there was a couple guys that were doing triple duty triple duty for the weekend. Um, I think it was um, it was Chastain and SVG and Zillich. So all the Trackhouse guys, I think, were doing triple duty, and we finally saw Zillich return to victory lane at Watkins Glen. They actually brought out the mattress. They brought out a mattress from the motorhome lot when he celebrated, just for safety reasons. But yeah, again, Zillich getting the stage 2 win and the race win for the O'Reilly series. It was very heartbreaking to watch Jesse Love unfortunately lose it on the last lap, but that was one of those last laps I think we'll remember for a while. How did you feel about that entire ending of that race?
Zilich was fast. If Love just kind of kept his head in it, I think he would have won the race, but he just cooked his own tires, his own brakes, he just misjudged it. It's going to happen to the best of us, but if he just held on just a little bit longer, Love and Zilich probably would have been at the line and probably would have been a drag race. But no, that's like I said, that's just racing. You can't beat up yourself too much because Love had a great day today.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's nothing to hang your hat about when you're finishing second and you only lost to Zillich, who, again, Watkins Glen is like his stomping grounds right now, at least in the O'Reilly series. But like the the way that ending of that race played out, I think, unfortunately for Love, he was having to conserve fuel late, and so that allowed Zillich to kinda catch him, and then, those last 3 or 4 turns, I wanna say he might have been doing more mirror driving than he was looking out the windshield, and like you said, just overdriving that last corner a little bit, allowing Zillich to get by, but it was a fantastic race nonetheless. I mean, there were quite a few strategies that played out, and we kinda saw that in the Cup race as well on Sunday, but, it was awesome to see a lot of the battles going on and watching the guys kind of adjust as they go, especially, like I said, a lot of these guys are not road course specialists, so the fact that they were able to adapt and move around and learn a lot more as they go is a lot of fun to watch, and, you know, like I said, some of the road course guy or the non-road course guys finished pretty well. Uh, Austin Green in a smaller team in the 87 coming home with a ninth place finish and just sticking with it throughout the entire day, killing it. Brandon Jones, another one that I think isn't always the strongest on road courses, but he was able to wheel his number 20 car home to a fifth place finish. Brent Cruz getting his first career stage win in the O'Reilly Series, and I believe the broadcast said he's the youngest stage winner in the O'Reilly Series. So, again, somebody else to keep an eye on over the course of the next, I'll say, year or two, just to, the amount of consistency he's shown in the top 5, top 10 over the course of the season is really impressive for a younger kid, and he ended up finishing above SVG. Now, SVG did have some issues on pit road late and destroyed that left front fender. I think it was the left front. Yeah, it was the left front on pit road. Unfortunately, running into somebody, but it was what it was. Uh, but we can't talk about destroyed cars without Sheldon Creed. Uh, I don't know. Looked like he was trying to off road. I know there was avoidance of a wreck that was going on, but that splitter just dug into the grass and then it launched it upward and it tore the back end of that car off. Did you see that little, I'll call it social media clip that went around?
I didn't see it, but I was thrown for a little bit of a flashbang when that happened. Just all that wet sod and mud that was caught with it. Just when you think, "Oh, I'm just gonna kinda ride around in the grass a little bit and tiny bit of damage, but, quick caution or a little bit of slow pit stop will wipe it off." But when you're basically pointing straight up at the moon, at the sun, your day's almost pretty much over when that
Yeah.
happens. It's not like, "Oh, I'm gonna kinda ride around." This has enough damage to probably actually be more of a parachute than just a detriment.
hmm It was it was a lot more than I think they realized, but he only finished one lap down, which was rather impressive considering the fact that he had no rear bumper. He had basically no splitter. So, I mean, that was impressive that he was able to wheel that thing around to finish the race. Um, we saw Zilich tear up his splitter as well later. I think it was with what was that? Under 10 to go. I know that much. And he ended up running into kind of that same area and tore the splitter up. It broke the splitter off, but then it got caught under the wheel, and they were talking about that affecting his ability to turn, and we kinda saw that because he ended up, whether he overdrove the corner or not, when he, towards the end there, of that lap, he ended up hitting the wall a little bit, but I don't know how he was able to run that thing without a splitter. I guess your aerodynamics don't necessarily matter as much at a road course, but, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what he was able to or how he was able to wheel that thing home, but he ended up getting another win in the O'Reilly Series and another win at Watkins Glen to, continue to come down and I'll say assert his dominance. But one thing I will mention about Jesse Love is, yes, he was super dejected after the race. Listening to his post-race comments, I mean, he sounded just I felt bad for him because I thought he had the race in hand, but he did post on Sunday, he did post about, you know, things don't always go your way, but, get to wake up and it's a new day, you still get to do what he still gets to do what he loves, and that's all that really matters, and so it was good to see him bounce back. He'll be fine this weekend, I think, at Dover. Just good to see him mentally kinda wipe the slate clean, and I'll be excited to see what he can do this upcoming weekend at Dover, but man, that was a rough finish for him, but, I mean, he's still got nothing to hang his hat about because he's sitting 3rd in points right now. Mind you, he's miles back of Allgaier. Everybody is, but Allgaier's at 640 points, and Sheldon Creed in second, despite all of the damage he suffered. Still sits in second in the points, but he's 160-ish points back. He's miles back. Um, like I said, Jesse Love is in third. Brandon Jones jumped over Corey Day with the good points day that he had in Brandon Jones finishing in fifth in the race, but jumping up to fourth in points, and then Corey Day fifth in points. So again, we're starting to kind of see everything play out, and everybody's kind of settling into where they should be, quote unquote, should be. But the points battle is going to start heating up rather quickly. Just because we're right over halfway for the O'Reilly series, so it should be entertaining to watch these guys battle it out over the course of the rest of the season. And Dover's going to be a fun one as well, even though the Cup series isn't running there for points, but which I think they should, and we'll talk about that later. But um, yeah, it'll be a fun race this weekend at Dover for sure. The Cup Series, going back to the Glen here, um, was it was a strategy race. There was multiple strategies that were playing out over the course of the day, and it seemed like between McDowell and SVG, it seemed like those two were going to be at the front all day, which it turned out to be true. It was looking like, um, you know, McDowell was going to have a really solid finish. He was he started second, started on the front row, and was able to keep keep pace, and uh, was able to, like I said, keep. They were on a slightly different strategy from the pack, and they ended up finishing second. Like I said, uh, a lot of guys were in a different spot than we typically see them. Ty Gibbs has definitely improved on his road course abilities, and he finished third. Now, he was fairly decent. Well, I won't say fairly decent. He was actually really good in the O'Reilly series. I think the Roval was where he got his first O'Reilly win, if I'm not mistaken. But Ty Gibbs is improving every week, especially at the road courses, and was leading quite a bit too. So just the fact that he was in the top 5 for most of the race, he's definitely improving. Uh, Another name that was above where I thought they would be was John Hunter Nemechek. He finished 10th, and I had posted on social media fairly early in the race. I was using um, the Galaxy app, which again, fantastic tool to use during the race. And I was looking at his 5 lap average time, and he was, I think, sitting around 15th or 16th or so at the time. And I want to say he had like Byron that was around him at that point in time. I think Bubba was right there too. And there was somebody else. And just looking at the way that they were ranked as far as 5 lap average goes, he was sitting like ninth or 12th overall out of everybody in lap averages, 5 lap averages. And then like Byron was like 20th or something like that. And Bubba was sitting like right around 18th, 19th in 5 lap average. And so I had posted something and said, hey, he's, got a fairly quick car compared to those around him. Just keep an eye on his long runs throughout the day. And lo and behold, he finishes top 10. So, not to toot my own horn or anything, but whatever setup that they had going on for that 42 car definitely seemed to work out. It was it was interesting to see that 42 up there towards the front when they typically are not, but good to see him running as well as he did. Chris Buescher, who I didn't pick him as my winner, but, he beat SVG a couple years ago at the Glen and has had fairly good success there, finished 12th. So not necessarily the day that they wanted, but again, kind of a better day, I think, than most. On the opposite end of that spectrum, another Ford driver that I don't know what is going on with him this season. Joey Logano, dead last again. Well, not again, but in the midst of his one of his worst four race stretches of his career, blew a left front tire and ended up with some damage in the rocker panel area and had to come down pit road to get it fixed, and then they ended up taking it back in the garage in, I think it was the DVP area, to get it taken care of, and he ended up finishing 15 laps down after having a fairly decent start, but just unfortunate luck that they've had over the course of the last couple races. What mentality would you have if you were Joey in this situation of you finished outside the top 30 in the last 4 or 5 races?
I would just try to put it behind me if I was him. I know there's probably some other things behind the scenes that might be contributing, but it's one of those where you're in a slump. You gotta shake off those cobwebs, get that monkey off your back, as the old racing saying is, and just gotta do better. Uh, I know that's duh, obviously do better, but
Yeah.
think a little bit different. What you're thinking of and doing right now in the car or outside the car, you have to change that because it's not working. So it might be he might go one or two more weeks as or one or two more races as a slump, but you can also use the All Star race if balls to the wall, kind of hang it loose, hang it out there, and really see how far you can push it with not quite no rules, but gives you an opportunity to not ruin anybody's points race by racing a little bit harder, elbows a little bit wider, hips a little wider. So the sometimes All Star Break or even the Coke 600 is a nice little. Let's just use it as kind of like a free week, sort of testing. Not every week, but kind of testing. Like, okay, we're going to be back either at this track or this style of track. Maybe a personnel change with this teammate. Uh, Ryan Blaney did. That was more pit stops, but sometimes personnel change, crew chief change, car chief change might be just that tiny little shakeup that he might need.
Yeah. I mean, and with, like we said, Dover being next week, with it being the All-Star break, you can try a couple different things. But then you've got Charlotte is gonna be after that, so you got the 600. Then you got Nashville, which is kind of an intermediate style. And you got Michigan, which is also an intermediate, a big intermediate at 2 miles. But then we've got Pocono after that, and then the San Diego street course. So it's gonna take a little bit of, some adjustments to be made for that 22 team, but, these intermediate style tracks is where this car runs best, and I think kind of getting your feet underneath you, kind of having an off week, I guess, helps. So maybe we'll see what that does, but unfortunately, just the racing gods have not been nice to him lately. But the there is a driver that was competing in the Cup race that's also gonna be competing at the Indy 500 in 2 weeks. Catherine Legg, she ended up finishing just 1 lap down, but she still finished the race. She was doing pretty well for what she had. Live Fast doesn't typically have the best road course cars because 'cause they're not specialized in that, but she was able to put together a really good effort, finishing 35th, and I'm interested to see what she can do in the 500 for sure. But also, her getting a couple more cup starts is also a pretty good thing for her. The road course side of things is obviously where I think she's gonna be better at than other tracks, but I would like to see her get a shot at one of these intermediates, like, it would be cool to see her at Nashville. I don't know, I don't have eyes on her schedule. I don't know if anybody really knows at this point, but hopefully she gets a couple more cup starts in this season just to kinda see where she can go. I know obviously this is not her full-time thing, but I've enjoyed watching her progression since her cup debut last year, and I wanna see her continue to get better. And so she's not always finishing 35th. I wanna see her, top 30, I think is a solid goal, and I think that's what we had said last year when she ran at Phoenix was just to kinda get past the top 30, and I think that's a pretty solid goal to look for, but, um, there was there was a couple of incidents or missed incidents from the weekend, and unfortunately, Catherine Legg was involved in one of those. She got spun, I think it was by Josh Balicki, and they let it go green because she was able to get the car refired. I think she got spun around coming out of the bus stop, and I appreciate NASCAR not throwing the caution on every little spin because it did keep things going. I know Josh Berry spun around a couple times, but there was a dangerous one that NASCAR missed there towards the end of the race with Cody Ware. There was actually the way that he hit the wall where he did, it actually looked like it damaged the Armco barrier, and the back end of that car was completely destroyed, and it was dangerous. I mean, I don't know, like, there were quite a few incidents, and I don't know if it was just because it was a road race, if it was just because typically Fox doesn't broadcast the Watkins Glen race, so I don't know if it's the, um, the lack of familiarity with the course with the producers, but, like, it it was pretty dangerous, and,
I think
um
I know why NASCAR probably didn't throw a caution and probably saw it late. One, trying to replace an Armco barrier when the sun is that low. That's basically saying race over because it's going to be hours to do, and by the time it's done, there's no lights at the track. Two,
yeah.
it is. It was 2 or 3 laps to go, and I think he was probably getting rolling just enough. And they probably saw the Armco barrier as it's probably good enough, and that was probably a fluke hit. But yeah, NASCAR needs to do a little bit better. And we're talking about Fox broadcasting. That's kind of like fixing a square wheel at this point.
Yeah, and since I figure we can talk about this a little bit because, um, it was their last broadcast of the season, or points race. I should say last points race broadcast of the season. Um, they typically don't have the best quality, of broadcast. I don't know if that's just based on producers or if it's, I don't know what the deal is, but typically they have not been the best at portraying the sport very well. Uh, there's been a couple of, well, I can't even say a couple. There's been a lot of videos that have been posted about the criticism for the Fox production team for what they do, whether it's shots that are too zoomed in or, uh, I can't remember who it was that I saw. They were talking about, like, the color grading, like, the color itself looks super flat. It's like they don't do anything with it. They just literally broadcast it as it is, and, like, you see NBC's is a little bit brighter. Prime looks a little bit more contrasty and it pops a little bit more. It looks better that way. It remains to be seen what TNT looks like, but I'm hoping theirs looks better as well. But like in your opinion, for the Fox broadcast, I know you said it's like trying to fix a square wheel. Your thoughts on Fox broadcasting NASCAR races over the course of time? I'm curious to hear what you've got to say about that.
Jokingly, I'm in the same crowd that says it's basically NFL people trying to broadcast a NASCAR race. It's like they don't really know what they're doing anymore. No, they want it to be a little bit too much action packed, and let's just focus on this one driver or these two drivers, and they don't, figuratively and literally, they don't zoom out and see the bigger picture, what else is going on. Wasn't it Fox a while ago, or who was it? I think it was all of them, NBC, Fox, or whatever, where they told Junior, "Hey, we don't want you looking out at the races anymore. We want you to look at the screen because uh, that's what the consumer sees. That's what the fan sees." And I agree. You need to kind of let the people that are at the race commentate the race, tell about the race. You're in a production truck 4,000 miles away, sometimes 12,000 miles away,
Yeah.
trying to run this race. Let them go. Let them do their own thing. There's been a couple of times where they kind of let Mike Joy do his thing, and he sounded like he enjoyed it. It sounds like I was a little kid again listening to a NASCAR race, but it's just turning into, you know, we want to commentate on what the fan sees. They're not going to see everything else. And at that point, shorten the race to 10 laps. I mean, if you're going to run the production truck 12,000 miles away, make your own NASCAR over there. I'm sorry. Make your own racing series where you are.
Or invest the money to go out and actually be at track.
Right. Be the director at the track instead of wherever your headquarters is at.
Yeah, I can see that. And I mean, it is a bit frustrating to like there was a couple battles this weekend that were going on. I want to say SVG was coming up through the field, which we'll talk about here in a second. And there was a three wide battle behind him, but they were so busy focused on him that they missed the three wide battle. You had to go and find it on, HBO, and you had to watch the onboards because that was the way to get it. That was the way to get watch some of these other battles because they were focused on one or two drivers throughout the race. And it was very frustrating as a viewer this week in particular. I don't know if it was because, again, it was Watkins Glen or what, but there was a lot of incidents that happened that when I was trying to update on the race, that I couldn't figure out what happened based on the race broadcast because they didn't know. So I had to go online. I had to go on Twitter, dangerous place sometimes, but had to go on Twitter and find, onboards and people like Steven Toronto, who I'm a big fan of. He literally posts, it seems like every onboard clip you can think of. He's able to, he goes and finds it and clips it and puts it online, but it shouldn't, it shouldn't have to come to people like him to post about what happens. I thought that was the job of the production company that was broadcasting the race. I thought that was part of their job. But I am very appreciative of Steven though, because again, he goes and clips everything. He gets a lot of radio clips that a lot of us miss, and um, I appreciate all of his hard work that he puts in, and I will be sure to link his stuff down below. But it shouldn't have to be those online guys that are going to get those clips to get um, the the information that we need because, like I said, that should be the job of the at track individuals. That should be the the job of the production team. Like they should be the ones going out and getting those stories on those sorts of things. But it was really fun um to kind of traverse the Twitterverse a little bit and uh you know with Ross Chastain winning stage one, there were a lot of melon heads that were happy he got a stage win, especially on a road course. Um, I mean, he's not necessarily known as a road course guy, but he got his first Cup win at Coda, so take with that what you will, especially in the way that he got the win. But um, like I said, Chastain coming home with the stage one win for the Glen, uh, SVG getting the stage two win, and then the um, the race win, obviously. So it was good to see Trackhouse back on form a little bit, especially since it was a road course and you knew those guys were going to do as well as they did. Um, they came out swinging and they were they were on top of things and uh, it was good to see that. Now the ending of the race, I do want to talk about a little bit because I think I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm going to make the controversial statement that, and there's going to be some recency bias to this statement, but those last, what was it, 22 laps were, well, you could argue probably the last 20 of the last 25 laps were some of the best racing at a road course I've ever seen. You agree, disagree?
Watching SVG chase everyone down was exciting. Here's my hot take. Once he got into the lean, it became boring again. I'm sorry. I
I
love the
can
guy, but it's at this point, once he gets in the lead at a road course, 3 laps to go. eh, Just watch second place, watch third place. That's all you can really do. I mean, I am rooting for him to get a couple of ovals, but he's got 7 wins, and all of them have been road courses so far.
Yeah,
But
well, I
but
think
the last 2025 have been good. They were great until the last 5 laps, and then
yeah.
it's like, okay, he's out front, now just cut him the check already.
Yeah, no, it was really fun to watch him drive his way through the field, and I'm actually gonna put up on screen here. There's this was pulled from the Galaxy app, but you'll see the delta chart here. Now, the yellow line is gonna be SVG, okay? So that yellow line is his gap to the leader. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and switch over to this real quick because circled is where I've also got McDowell in there too, but you'll see the steep drop, and that was where they pitted because they had stayed out at the end of stage two to keep their track position. There was a late yellow as well, I think, in stage two, and so they had kind of a short run to the end, and they were running long on fuel. And so they were going to have to make a pit stop at some point in stage three to be able to make it to the end on fuel. But some of the other guys were going to run it long and hope to save fuel and make it to the end, but hopefully with that long run they were going to end up like their plan was to again save and try to keep track position and try to work their way forward. But here, like I said, you can see that where SVG and McDowell pitted. I've got um, couple drivers up there. I know it's not necessarily the easiest to see here, but McDowell and SVG. The green is Ty Gibbs, the red is Chase Briscoe, and that teal, whatever color you want to call it, is Ty Gibbs. No, that's not right. Connor Zillich. Sorry about that. And so again, you'll see the delta right there where I've got it circled. That's where those guys came to pit road. That's where McDowell and SVG came to pit road. They were about 2 laps apart. And at at one point, SVG was 29 seconds back of the leaders. And as you'll see over the course of that run, he was I think he finally gave it his all. And throughout the course of the race, it seemed like he was kind of holding back with what he had, but those last, like I said, 20 of the last 25 laps were incredible to watch him just drive his way through the field. He was able to put that car where he wanted it to. He was able to drive it and wheel the thing around, and he was running that bus stop like nobody else. Now, again, I default to you because you're more of you have more, I'll call it racing experience than I do. But they had showed on the broadcast, they used their ghost car thing to show the difference between SVG and Zillich in the bus stop in particular. And I want to say SVG, they did a timing of it for how long it took them to get through the bus stop. And I believe it was like 9 seconds on average for SVG, and then Zillich was like 9.2, and then somebody else was 9.4, 9.5 seconds. So, what about that as far as rolling that, or carrying more speed into the corner? What do you think SVG was doing differently than everybody else to be able to gain that speed in the bus stop?
I think it's just confidence, knowing the car, how you can slide it in, get it sideways, how you can what he does is he pretty much saves his stuff to the end. He kind of pushes here and there, where can I push here, where can I push there? And like we were saying, the what last 25 laps, 29 seconds, all you have to do is go, okay, I've got all this knowledge. Here's the final exam. Let's put it together. Let's write that final book. That's what he's really good at, which pisses me off because it works. But
Well, that like
it's
he's
good.
I was just gonna say he's one of those road course guys that's his background, and so like him being able to not use as much brake but carry more speed through there, like how does that whole thing work? Because obviously, like,
Confidence and big balls is what it is. It's more the confident side. Like I said, he knows the car because it's very similar to the supercars he ran over in Australia and New Zealand. What he's able to do is, like I said, the confidence to not brake as much, go a little faster. Where can he push? Where can he save? Because on the straightaway, you're not really burning your tires. So on a fast, you know, little bus stop like that, sure, yeah, you have to slow down. But the way they have it cut now, all you have to really do is slow down right before the carousel. So knowing that little tidbit, that knowing how each corner handles, the car handles, and what everyone else is doing, I keep saying it every other week because you ask me, how do you, as a young driver racing against the cup guys, how can you place yourself to be just like them, follow their racing line. Brake when they brake. Yeah, sure, it's not part of your driving style, but try it a couple of laps. It might chop off half a second of lap. And that's, just keep doing that every lap. Just don't try to make up that time somewhere else where you're losing time. That's where everything just negates and all your efforts for naught. So now that he's getting pretty much all of the infinity stones, pretty much, I think everyone else should look at it and go, okay, maybe we should get better at road courses because there's going to be another Formula One invasion, IndyCar invasion, supercar invasion, like there was in the late 2000s, early 2010s.
Oh, for sure. And one thing Justin Marks had said post race, owner of Trackhouse, he said he was asked about the status of Project 91, which is how SVG came over to have his one shot at, or his first opportunity, I should say, at NASCAR and the Cup Series, and that's how he got his first career victory at Chicago on the street course was because of Project 91. And Justin Marks said the most he can say right now is don't forget about Project 91. So there is speculation with, the possibility of somebody coming over to do the San Diego street course because a certain series, F1, has an off week. I don't know that that off week is going to be enough time, but maybe there's been somebody in the building that we don't know about. I don't know. Well, obviously, there probably is somebody that's been in the building that we don't know about yet, but it'll be interesting to see who that next driver could be. But it was really cool to watch, like we said, SVG do his thing. The other one I want to talk, like I said, Michael McDowell's run as well also should be talked about. I mean, I know the margin of victory was like 7 seconds, but if you look at that Delta graph behind me, he ended up finishing second, and he was still 7.5 seconds behind the leader. But if you look at that, the Delta line, he was almost the same, I'll call it rate of catching up to the leader as SVG was. So I think his run should definitely not go unnoticed either. He was doing a fantastic job all race and just was able to get the thing home in second place. But with with all of that, uh, from the Glen, Reddick, who ended up coming home fifth somehow, he was not talked about as much either, but he still leads the series in points. Denny is still in second. I think the top five are they've moved around a little bit. Uh, Chase Elliott coming home or has the third place in points or is third in the points. Blaney is in fourth, and Chris Buescher is in fifth place. So again, I think that consistency is definitely showing up and helping him climb the ladder in points a little bit. One other thing I almost forgot to mention, I don't know how I almost forgot to mention it, was that we had an unusual caution for a flying tent from the infield. Uh, there were some clips going around of a dust devil that had picked up several things, that tent included, that I mean that thing went so high. I'm glad nobody was in it, but tent ended up on track and caused a caution. That was probably one of the most unusual cautions I think I've ever seen. Um, the only one I can really think of that comes close was, I believe it was at Chicagoland when the giant Tropicana orange blew out on track. But like that's the only other, I'll say, close comparison, I think. But apparently that wasn't even the only tent on track this weekend because there was another one during practice, I think, for I think it was the Truck Series or something like that. So it wasn't the only tent on track, but definitely an interesting um, caution to say the least. But it was definitely a good weekend overall for a lot of these guys, and it was like I said, just one of those weekends where the road course definitely hung some guys out to dry, but also helped elevate some guys' game.
Well, we all know the winner gets the glory at the end of the day, but not every story ends in victory lane. Some performances deserve to be hung on the fridge, others you'd rather kick to the curb. Welcome to Fridge or Trash. So let's start with, obviously, uh, I know we don't watch the ARCA races much. I think we probably need to start doing that because the stuff's actually getting pretty interesting this year. But
Oh
for
yeah,
the
for sure.
trucks, who is your trashy McTrash face?
You know, the one I don't want to put in the trash. Uh, I mean, it's kind of tough because again, like there are some guys that are not the road course guys that just didn't have their best week this week, and I don't know. It's kind of tough, and I know we try to stay away from the guys, and I feel like we say this every week. Either you say it or I say it, but we try to stay away from the guys that have things out of their control, cause an end to their race or cause issues. But I mean, Ben Rhodes kind of had a rough one this week. Had some issues fairly early in the race, and then uh, actually it wasn't early. It was he had issues throughout the race. I'll just say that, but wasn't able to really get anything going positively. Finished 14 laps down and just not doing what he needs to do as far as, getting that truck in a good spot. They haven't had the best of seasons so far, but this weekend was definitely one I think they want to forget to kind of move on and go on to next week at Dover. You have a trash performance for the week?
It's kind of hard to pick because half the field finished where they should have, or where they're kind of projected. Then a lot of them just sucked. But the one that
Yeah,
kind of stuck out was Ty Majeski. He's normally up there. Usually has a decent road course finish, but I forgot to put in my notes. Where did he finish again?
24th.
24th. Yeah, you have to do a little bit better than that because that puts
And
him where in points again? Where does that drop him to?
so Majeski now sits in 7th.
And
He's
he
he's
was
he's 87 points out of the lead currently. If we were to go back to last week's, if I can get there, um, trying to pull it up here. So yeah, 7th in points is definitely not where you want to be. Last week after Texas, he was also 7th, but he's kinda slowly fallen down the list, I think. It's not necessarily been a, um, sudden drop in points. I mean, he was in 7th after Bristol. Um, After Rockingham, he was 5th. So I think after Rockingham, like, it was fairly close, but then he's, just not had the best finish over the last 3 races, and so that's kinda tanked his or kinda let him slip in the points a little bit. He's still in the top 10, which is where the chase cutoff is right now, but just not where they wanna be and not where I know they can be for sure. Um, and you had mentioned it, he's definitely not doing that number 88 any favors.
nope.
But
Let's
on the flip side, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
I was gonna say on the flip side of things, did you have a performance that really stuck out to you this week?
I was very surprised and kind of proud of Mini Tyrell being up there, especially pushing the Rams up there because they had not a good. What was the last road course they were on? That was St.
What did
Petersburg, wasn't it?
they were at mm,
Was that Coda?
so
I can't
they
remember.
were at Coda. So they were at the St. Pete was race number 3. They were not at Coda. So this is only their second road course of the year.
So yeah, I know there were some teething issues with Ram in general up until now, and I think they're starting to find their footing. Mini Tyrell is, besides the road course ringers, oh yeah, I I think he's one to watch ovals and road courses.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's a guy that he's also a fan favorite, and I think it was that race for the seat definitely helped him. Um, as far as being a good um, public facing driver, and so I think now that he's having the success he's having on track, it's really cool to watch. I was gonna put him as mine, but I'm gonna switch it, and I had mentioned him a little bit earlier. Daniel Hemrick for me is probably gonna be my performance of the week. Top 5 finish. Not had the best of seasons, but again, having a top 5 at a road course and beating out, AJ Allmendinger and, uh, a couple of the other guys that are a little bit better at road courses, but only losing to obviously the race winner, Caden Honeycutt, Zilich, and SVG. I'd say that's not a bad day at all for you. So, good to see him up in the top 5, and hopefully this momentum can propel him forward a little bit. Currently, he's 10th in points, so he's right there at the cut line. Uh, I mean, he is the cut line, really. So hopefully that can help him build some sort of positive momentum going into Dover, and then obviously the next couple races after that. They've got, like I said, Dover, they've got Charlotte, Nashville, Michigan, and the street course. So it looks like they're following the Cup Series around, uh, which is going to be fun to watch. Uh, so they'll have a couple of solid tracks to go to that hopefully they can build that truck and team around him to continue to carry that positive momentum. But do you have a we'll stick with the positive train here for a second. From the O'Reilly series, was there a performance that stood out to you from that race?
I'm gonna say Roger Carruth. He's doing a lot better. The trend is going up. I think he needs to ride on this momentum, performance, and try to get himself, a permanent ride next year instead of this hop skippity jump stuff he's doing. Don't know if you can tell, folks. I think we're both secretly fans of Raja Carruth, and a little disappointed what happened to him during the silly season. But I digress. But Raja Carruth, keep your head up. People are seeing you. You'll get that opportunity one day.
Oh yeah. I'll say it proudly. I'm a big fan of him. I've enjoyed watching his progression throughout throughout the truck series and then where he's at now in the O'Reilly series. The Jordan Anderson cars that he does run part-time, or his other partial schedule with, they are, I believe, prepared in-house with Junior Motorsports, and I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. So it's not like he's necessarily going shop to shop every week, but like it is a little rough as far as not being in the same building every single week, but um it is good to see him running up their top 15 uh, and back in the junior motorsports car. My performance of the week is probably going to be Austin Green in the 87. Not necessarily one that's talked about a whole lot. Not a guy that we typically see up at the front. He's unfortunately usually in the back, but a ninth place finish and coming in right behind SVG. I would say anytime on a road course, you could say you finished right behind SVG is probably a good day for you. And he was running pretty well throughout the race, was able to come home with a clean-ish car, as clean as you could probably get for a road course. But, good to see him again come home with a top 10 and, like starting in 35th is very difficult to overcome, but going from 35th out of 38 up to ninth is incredible. So, good job on him. But is there a driver you would have liked to have seen more from, or one that you just would have said, "Hey, just stay home this week," if you knew that their weekend was gonna turn out this way?
Does Sammy Smith like popcorn and laying in bed? It's almost
Oof.
seemed like what he did that this week. So
Yeah.
normally you look for Sammy Smith, Austin Hill, Jesse Love, because they're the big dogs of the Bush Series, O'Reilly Series, Nationwide Series, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
That's who you expect to run out front, no matter what. And I didn't see Jesse Love at all on the TV, and even in the highlights, I barely even saw him. So it's
Try it
like
again, Sammy Smith.
Sammy Smith. That's what I meant. I'm talking about the number 8. He just
Yeah.
wasn't around. So I I get it. Road courses are not his forte, but you're junior motorsports. You have a lot on your plate, but at the same time, you have the machine and equipment. You got to do a little bit better than that.
Yeah, especially when you got your teammates you got a teammate that wins. You have, SVG in 8th, Allgaier in 10th, Raja in 12th. I'll call Corey Day another one as well. He was 15th, and then you're in 16th. So, you're still top 20, but, like, there you've got better equipment than what you showed. So, kind of a rough week for him. I would I don't know, it's kinda hard, but Anthony Alfredo definitely didn't have the best week for sure, I think in my opinion. 24th place finish, qualified fairly decently in 15th. His teammate Parker Retzlaff finished 7th and was able to stay up towards the front for most of the afternoon. So again, not like their team didn't have speed throughout the weekend, but I think for him, I don't know what adjustments they made throughout the race, but it definitely didn't do him any favors, kind of sent him backwards in the wrong direction. And unfortunately, outside the top 20 is not where you want to be, especially when you see your teammate get a top 10 finish. But kind of a kind of a rough way to get the week, or kind of rough on this for your back half to start your back half of your season. But things can turn around very quickly from race to race, and with the O'Reilly series as well being at Dover next week, Dover should be a better track for them, and hopefully that they get some positive momentum back on their side. But for the Cup series, this one's going to be a wild one. I know we had talked off camera about our potential picks. We didn't name names, but I'm interested to hear who your trash driver or drivers were for the Cup race this week.
That's probably best if we start with the trash, because we kind of silently agreed that we try to pick no more than 2, 3 is pushing it for either trash or fridge. But this week I can probably be an exception, but
I
for the
agree.
trash drivers, I have my allotted maximum of two: Ross Chastain and Brad Keselowski. Yes, Ross Chastain did have the stage win, but he couldn't convert that. He couldn't stay up front for very long. And where he ended up was not the best day at all. Sure, you got an extra 10 points on top of whatever he got extra, but that's about it. 10 points can make or break the chase, but at the same time, where are you, buddy? Where are you at?
Yeah.
You just can't have a. You just can't toot your own horn a little bit for about 10 seconds and never show up again. You have to convert. You have to do something. And then Brad
Mhm.
Keselowski, nowhere. I know he's not a road course ringer. It's not really his specialty, but he usually does a lot better than that. Granted, RFK wasn't a whole bunch there today during the race, but he was bottom of the barrel. He is the veteran driver. You got to perform better than that.
Well, yeah, when you got 2 of your cars in the top 15, I mean, Buescher and Preece, 12th and 14th respectively. They've also got, if I remember correctly, I think Joey Hand is still in their building as a sim guy, or as he's a part of their team, I believe, somehow, and he's a road course guy, so I'm kinda surprised by their results or lack thereof, but, yeah, I will say that the one good thing about Brad's weekend was that Modelo car looked really good. I can't lie.
It doesn't mean anything if you're way down there.
Yeah. He didn't get much airtime, so it's kind of unfortunate we didn't get to see it much, but from the pictures I was able to see on social media that RFK Racing posted, looked really sharp, just need to get up towards the front so it's seen a little bit more. But I'll have to say, I hate doing this because I don't like to pick a team just because that it kind of feels like cheating a little bit. It's kind of stretching the boundaries or stretching the limits of our, 2 to 3 car maximum. But I'm gonna break it this week and just say all of Hendrick sucked. They were nowhere to be found. Byron had some mechanical issues. There was an incident where he got knocked around a little bit in the bus stop and knocked a toe link out of whack, and that kinda sent him backwards. Not like he had the speed anyway over the course of the day. I mean, he started 13th, so it's not like they didn't have speed, but, I mean, he was by far and away, I think, the fastest, um, Hendrick car, but still couldn't do much with what he had, and he ended up at the bottom of the barrel for the Hendrick drivers, but Larson in 23rd, Chase in 24th, and Bowman in 25th, and then obviously Byron in 36th. That's definitely gotta be a weekend they forget about because, Chase was the road course guy there for a minute. I mean, he was challenging some of Jeff Gordon's records there for a while. So I know the next gen car has not been great for him, but I feel like they have started to turn it around, at least for the 9 car. And then this weekend, I don't I don't know whether it was a swing and a miss or what the deal was for them, but they definitely want to forget this weekend. But here's where it's going to get interesting. I know you said you were going to push the limits on how many you were going to call out for this week for positive vibes. I'm curious how many.
Well, I try to put them in their respective finishing order. One of them is a little questionable, but I'll explain here in a minute. McDowell, Dillon, Bush, Nemechek, Zilich. They all had amazing performances. I couldn't just pick two or three of them. I had to group them all in. McDowell coming in second when he's these past 2 years have been kind of quiet. Dylan and Bush, like you said, you can't really. It's kind of cheating when you pick a team, but they've been down in the dumpster ever since day one this season.
Yeah.
A couple of sparklers here and there, but John Hunter Nemechek, 10th place. Where did he come from?
Yeah.
And
I
then
was shocked. Well,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I was shocked, but not so shocked once I realized, like, looking at some of the race lap averages and stuff. I'm like, this kid's got some speed today.
Oh yeah, because normally when you see the legacy cars, it's usually Eric Jones beats him in qualifying and race pace about what 30 out of 36 times. And this is
Yeah.
one of the rare cases where Eric Jones didn't just wreck out. Nemechek actually, their team actually had the strategy, the speed. I know we're singing praises just of him, but that's great. We don't really see that from Legacy on road courses all that much. It's,
No.
and in general, especially this year and last year, and their dust up with changing ownership hands, getting new owners. So they're kind of in a roller coaster at the moment, but this is a great high for them. And
Oh,
then Zilich. Yes, he cooked one of his tires. He had to come in for a late pit stop. But watching his performance all day, just like Cody Ware at Talladega, just because you didn't finish good, you need to look at the whole race and look at where you were. You know what a top 5, top 10 car is. You just need to put the puzzle piece together and finish and put that strategy together to be there at the end. So I wouldn't, hang my head too far down there, Zilich. Keep your head up. You are a road course ringer. You're very good at this. You're getting better at the car in general. Keep it up.
yeah. Now, never did I think over the course of time that I would hear the comparison between Zilich and Cody Ware, but here we are. It's 2026 and anything is possible. But you're right. I think um, the the performance from Zilich definitely needs to be talked about. The fact that he was, yes, he finished 20th, but where he was running throughout the day, and the fact that he was challenging SVG at one point, and late there in the runs, like it looked like it was gonna be a battle between the two Trackhouse guys and the two road course ringers, which says something, I think, for where he's at in his racecraft just in general, but especially on the road courses when SVG's been doing it for basically his entire life. I would argue probably as long as Zilich has been alive, and then Zilich is here and he's doing as well as he is now. I can only imagine where he's gonna be. So, again, 20th place doesn't suit him very well for this weekend, but big picture, I think it was a positive weekend. It's hard for me to pick. I want to go with the RCR guys. I think is probably going to be my fridge picks for the week because again, they're not typically at the front. It was actually Austin Dillon's best ever road course finish in sixth. Kyle Busch, despite the sinus cold and needing uh, I'll say medical attention after the race, which was not as severe, thankfully, as what we all were thinking. But especially after Alex Bowman needing medical attention, um, at Coda, that kind of scared everybody. And when I was seeing the reports about Kyle Busch needing the doctor after the race, I was like, oh, what's going on with him? But the fact that he was dealing with, you know, the sinus issues he was dealing with and still finished 8th was incredible. He also did have an interim crew chief as well. Matt Swiderski was on the box for him this week. His normal crew chief, or I'll call him his new crew chief, was actually at home this weekend. I think it was the birth of him and his wife's 4th child. So congratulations to them. I know it was kind of rough missing the race this weekend, but especially when you get a top 10, like that's kind of a tough one to miss out on. But it was definitely a positive result for Kyle. I know they needed it. They got some stage points. They're moving up a little bit in the points, not by much, but like they moved up. So anywhere above where they were is good. Kyle currently sits in 24th. Austin Dillon is in 22nd. If we go back to last week's points, just where they were sitting, um, they were obviously a little bit lower than that. Um, Going back to last week, Austin Dillon was 27th and Kyle Busch was 26th. So Dillon jumped up 5 spots. Kyle jumped up 2. So um, positive positive momentum for them. Is that going to carry over for the rest of the season? That is yet to be seen. The other thing about both RCR cars finishing in the top 10, it was the first time RCR put 2 cars inside the top 10 since Chicago last year, and it was also the first time Kyle Busch and Dillon finished in the top 10 in the same race since Texas in 2024. So, also great to see them finally, hopefully, maybe starting to put some pieces together. I do have an honorable mention for this week as well. Just really quick, I want to throw Cole Custer in there. Finished 15th. I know he's not been having the season he wants to, but a 15th place finish at the Glen on a road course is very, very good for them. That is, I think, his best result of the season. So maybe this can parlay into something as well. You never know. But that was probably my honorable mention. If you had to pick one of those performances out of all 3 series, do you have one that stands out above the rest?
Hmm. Between Mini Tyrell and Hunter Nemechek. I'm probably gonna
Solid
say
choices.
I'm gonna probably say Nemechek just above Tyrell. But they both had quiet but really good races, respectively. But I think John
Sure.
Hunter Nemechek needed this finish because he's been kind of on the back burner, and yeah, he's there. He does okay. He gets points. He's not terrible. He could be a menace at times.
Yeah, just ask Kyle Busch.
Might have a entirely you know, sole episode on Bush this season, but
We might
John
unfortunately.
Hunter, yeah, John Hunter, I probably has the out of our fridge drivers, he probably had the best performance against himself, if that makes sense.
That I think is a really solid point to make because sometimes it's not always about the driver versus other drivers or drivers versus the track. It's sometimes against themselves. And so it was good to see him uh, again getting that finish that he did. Um, I For me, it's kind of tough picking between them because they're just they're good in their own right in every single way. But I don't know. I don't want to also go with a cup driver because I mean, everybody kind of focuses on the Cup Series a lot, but I'm gonna go back to the Truck Series here and actually go with Daniel Hemrick. I think was probably my performance of the week, fridge performance of the week, just because he, again, is not known as a road course guy and finished 4th and was up towards the front for most of the race and just needed this performance to be able to hopefully piggyback into something that continues to build for that 19 team. Again, like I said, not necessarily that um, they need to win every single week. I mean, obviously that's the goal, but with him being the cut line right now for the chase, which I know it's a little early to talk about, having solid points days like that is going to help you later in the season. So, I mean, I think that's probably my fridge performance of the week. But looking ahead to Dover this weekend, we do have all 3 series there. 2 of them are points races. The other one for the Cup Series is, fortunately or unfortunately, whichever way you look at it, um, it's the All-Star race. It's always a funky new format. They're always trying to do something new, always trying to make it creative yet complicated for the fan to understand. I'm not a big fan of them doing these gimmicks and whatnot. I will say the one gimmick I do like is like the pit crew challenge. It highlights the pit crews, which I think is needed. But other than that, stop trying to get too creative and cutesy with the whole format. Just let them run 200, 250 laps, and whoever comes out on top at the end of that wins the whatever it is. I don't want to say the $1,000,000, but whatever they end up winning, like I feel like that's what it should be. Just run it straight up. But what do you think about those gimmicks as far as trying to do different things to get the heats to get guys in and things like that? What is your take on that sort of stuff?
It's getting stronger the more years I watch, and this goes for the Clash and All-Star race. I think it's slowly running its course, and I think going on for too long. I get why they're both there. I get why they're still around, but I think there needs to be another. I think you need to almost go back to the drawing board with both of them. It's getting to be too many heats, too many. It's getting to be too long at this point. It's heat races, and it's going to be a 500 lap race at Dover or at any other track. It needs to be a short shootout. It was at Charlotte because it was off weekend. They didn't have to travel far, and because Humpy Wheeler said so. God bless him, but God bless it. He can say we're going to put monster trucks on the moon, and that's the all-star race, and he would be talked down to. Okay, we'll make a bus out of a monster truck, and then we'll jump it at Charlotte. Okay, fine, you can have that. I'm not too far off with that, actually. By the way,
Sounds about
but
right.
but going back to it, I don't. We can dive into a little bit of the history of the All Star race. I think it was R.J. Reynolds and stuff. I think made it or kind of suggested it and gave the idea to Humpy Wheeler, and that's kind of All Star started in '85? Question mark. 1985, I think was the first year for it. Yeah, sure, it got a little bit boring at Charlotte. I think it should have. I think it was help me with my history here. Didn't it go to Atlanta at one point, or was proposed to go to Atlanta in '86 or
It
in
might
'87?
have been. You are correct. It did start in '85.
Okay, because and remember the Atlanta didn't get its dog leg configuration until 96.
So it did go to Atlanta for 86, but it went back to Charlotte from 87 to 2019, and then obviously we unfortunately remember, well, Bristol wasn't terrible in 2020. Texas was god awful. North Wilkesboro, it was great to see them bring that back for a couple years. Now it's got a points paying race, and then now Dover for the year.
I said keep it kind of rotating. Maybe have like 3 years in a row lined up. That way you can kind of, you know, these three. Okay, we're gonna select this one for the next one. Select this one. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe the All Star race that can be the go to one of those um, the ovals in Mexico because
Yeah, there we go.
those are some fun races to watch when you can find them at 2 in the morning on TV.
Or you stumble upon them on YouTube when you're half asleep, and then you get super invested, and it's 4:30 in the morning, and you're like, "Man, I got work soon. I don't know why I'm up watching this."
Yeah, I should have been asleep 7 hours ago, and I have to be up in 10 minutes. Oops. Anyway,
Yeah.
we have our
I think
opinions. They're getting stronger and stronger. The years go on. Maybe at the end of the year, maybe that can be a filler week for us.
for sure, for sure. Um, but yeah, so we've got the All-Star race next week. Should be I'm more interested in watching the Truck and O'Reilly race at this point, but we will we'll obviously watch, keep you updated throughout the course of the race, and we'll have some opinions on it, good, bad, or other, as we always do. And then, like I said, we've got some interesting stuff coming down the pipeline for you guys as well. We've got a little look ahead. We've got some predictions popping up next week as well, I think. So we for the chase, and it should be a fun week, I think, coming up. So definitely stay tuned for that. But anything else you want to add before we dip out of here?
Support your local tracks. Go ahead and eat the popcorn, hot dogs. Like I said, support local.
Oh yeah. One other thing, real quick, I almost forgot to mention it. Uh, we did see another domino in silly season fall. I know we had talked about it a little bit, or we had mentioned silly season, I think, a couple weeks ago. But the 47 car has a driver for at least, I believe, through the end of the 2027 or possibly 2028 season. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. signed a multi-year extension, so he'll be sticking with Hayek Motorsports for the what they said is the foreseeable future. So Recky, whatever you want to call him, he's still there in the 47. He will be for the foreseeable future. But um, just thought we'd toss that bit of news in there because I kind of forgot about that until now. But uh, Dover, like I said, should be an interesting one. We definitely look forward to uh, watching that. We thank you guys for listening and tuning into this one as well. Again, keep up with all of our happenings over on our social media pages right over here. I've got my website listed in the description as well. But thank you guys for tuning in, and we will catch up with you guys after the Dover week.